today it sounds like we're going to be talking about the Tesla Spirit Radio
Yeah.
and the soul phone. And these are fascinating technologies.
Yes, and actually I have 5 different ways that I'm going to explain how we can communicate with the spiritual world, and it works about every time.
Fantastic. And also, I want to recommend people pick up your book, Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness. Learn how to expand the power of the mind at every level of existence. And you can also go to, just spell this out, folks, AAGE-NOST.com. You've got a great website. So
yeah, that is the website. I'm not really using that one much. It's there, and it's a phenomenal body of volume there. But broadcastteamalpha.com, that's where you really would see what's going on these days. That's the one that Nori Love and I have put together, and it's a good one. So we'll just remember that, broadcastteamalpha.com. Anyway, are we going out live now?
Yeah, we're live right now. We're live on the website, and I'm actually going to give you the opportunity to do a screen share here also.
Okay.
And so I'm going to share your website, your most recent website, that is where you put most of your information now. Broadcast Alpha. Here we go. Okay, perfect. So where do you want to start, man? Do you want to start with the...
Gosh, let me ask you this. How long are we on a time constraint or anything I can pace myself?
You know, I figure do what you feel most comfortable with. So let's make it as organic as possible. If you want to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours, let's go with it, man. I'm just excited for the opportunity.
You'll be in charge of the time, you know, because I can talk till Christmas if you let me.
Okay. Well, yeah, let's keep it under 2 hours, you know, but let's make it just because people have attention spans. Like I used to have an attention span of a goldfish, and now I've stepped it up, chipmunk style. I've got an attention span of a chipmunk. When I talk to people like you, 2 hours, I can definitely absorb that in an awesome amount of time. 2 hours is perfect.
We'll try to make it interesting, and we'll try to make it fun. I love having fun when I'm doing these things. Otherwise, why?
Yeah, man. Yeah, we get along great. I mean, every time we've done a podcast, it's been fantastic. I feel like I've known you forever. So let's...
I've been the guest of you probably 2 or 3 or so times, 3 times before maybe, and enjoyed every moment of it. So
I did pay him to say that, folks. Checks in the mail.
Yeah, that's all right. And I want to start with something interesting, and that is that I will talk to the listeners. If you have any atheists in your family, go grab them, put them down, and watch this show, because I'm going to mess with their head.
Perfect.
And I think that is very appropriate, because it's not that atheists are stupid. They just haven't had any interest possibly, or they don't believe, or they never looked into it. And I'm ignorant on an awful lot of subjects, but that I've never looked into. So the thing is that once you start looking into something, bodies of evidence come to the surface, and you start realizing maybe there is something here, and that's what we're going to do. Because even atheists, they believe in something. They believe in science, most of them. And we're going to show you the science that prove that there is something after the time when we drop the body and move on. So it's going to be good.
Great. All right, let's go.
I'm buckled up. You know, the thing about it, most of us, we suspect that there is something after we drop the body. And let's call it the time we die. But the thing is that we don't die. And we wonder, what does it look like afterward? Does it sound like? But if we were able to talk to those people that have departed, and some of them have come back through near-death experiences, so on, and they have phenomenal experiences to tell about. But we have the pictures, we have the videos, we have the testimonies from people that have died on the operating table, gone somewhere, had an experience, and come back and talk about it. We also have the voice recording from departed ones. And that's something that we're going to talk about a little bit later here, because there are some phenomenal voice recordings that people can take themselves. I'm going to show people here by maybe you or me sharing screen. And we will show you some electronic equipment that you can probably build for 20 bucks. And you can do this yourself.
That's what I'm talking about. That's some affordable
Yeah.
science right there.
Yeah. I kind of priced it out. I think it's a couple of years ago now, and I did it 2 ways. I cheapened it out, and I got it for less than 20 bucks altogether on the parts. But if you're gonna do one that kind of you know, has a little structure to it, you probably could end up between $20 and $30. So it's not gonna break you. If you don't know anything about electronics, that's okay. Everybody knows someone that has a little clue about electronics. So tell them that if I get you this, I think it's 13 or 14 components to a small radio that you can talk to dead folks, would you make me one? And then give him the parts for 2 of them so he can make one for himself, and then make one for you. And then you and him can have some fun.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
And so, but you know, for a lot of people though, they're going to have that mindset of, oh, we're not supposed to do that because it says in scripture, or my pastor told me, or, you know, I learned from my parents or whatever, you know, my coworker told me because I go to the same church that if I communicate with those that have passed on, then that's wrong. And so there's going to be a lot of, you know, and that's one thing that made me think, did that one church that loves us so much, they hide everything underneath the Vatican. I mean, I wonder if they used that story like, oh man, do not communicate with anybody that's passed on, in order to stop that like flow of information. That's interesting.
Yeah, because if you can figure out that you have access by yourself to both the spiritual world and the higher dimensions where you have the real highly developed spiritual guides and archangels, and you can get into really interpretive terms here, then what would we need the church for? So they will lose both power and the purse. So they are very constipated about these things.
Great verbiage there. However, with that, you know, thinking about communicating with something that you can't see, there could be a lot of tricksters out there too, though. So, I mean, I could definitely see why people would want to steer away from that, because how do you know you're not communicating with what someone might call an archon or a demon?
Yeah, now you're getting into something that even that will mess with the heads of the atheists. So what we really need to remember that, first of all, just because we're dead doesn't make us smart. We don't know everything. So whoever you're talking to, they don't know everything necessarily. And for the second is that they may not be who they say they are. So there is ways you can trick them into telling the truth. And that is, if it is something that I guess the church will call them, the Christian church will call them, you know, demons. And there are other religions that call them different names. And there are tricksters out there that is interpreted to be one of those entities. And they like to play tricks on people, not necessarily for bad purposes, but because they enjoy it. And some of them may really have bad intentions. So it is a very tricky arena to go into. That's why we need to protect ourselves, put ourselves in a ball of light, or have no fear in our mind, because if we have fear in our own mind, we draw on those kinds of energies to match ours. So that's something to remember. Now, there's a lot of evidence to that something leaves the body when we die. But maybe we should wait with that, because let's cater a little bit to the atheists first. Let's show them the spirit, the Tesla spirit radio. Let me just talk a little bit about this Tesla spirit radio. There was in 1901 when Nikola Tesla built the first small radio. Actually, it was, I've seen a picture of it. It's kind of sizable. Now it's a lot smaller. But he made a statement in an interview one time, and I wrote it down. So I was going to give you the exact quote, and I have it here. I'm going to read it to you. This is what Nikola Tesla said about that spirit radio. My first observation positively terrified me, as there was present something mysterious, not to say supernatural, and I was alone in my laboratory at night. The sounds I am listening to sounds like human voices conversing back and forth in a language I cannot understand. Now, we got to remember, Nikola Tesla was a very well-educated man. He was fluent in 7 languages. He was in the United States. One of these languages at least should have been English, but it wasn't. And on top of that, there were 2 of them talking back and forth, and Nikola was not part of the conversation. In 2001, there were hardly less than 20 radio operators in the country. The first radio station that came around, I think, was about 1920, when it was the structure was set up for radio stations to exist, and they called it the KEKA. That was in 1920. And at that time, there were probably about 20 to 40 radio stations in the whole country. So in 2001, there really was nobody hardly there that he could talk to, but he heard it. We don't know what it was. It could be, well, evidently it was outside of the physical. It was picked up by the antenna. And it could be interdimensional, it could be parallel timelines, it could be a spiritual world above us in vibration. I don't know, but it came from somewhere. And that alone should mess with the heads of the atheists, because it did happen. Should we show the pictures of this? Oh, you're muted, Rex.
I do want to show some photos, yes. And I want to ask you a question first too, because was that when he was, or in a book or in an essay titled Communicating with Planets or Talking with Planets, that quote you just gave us at the beginning?
I think that quote came in that book, but in the book was written a little bit later, but it referred back to what he thought may have been from other planets.
Yeah, wow. So we're not sure exactly what the communication was, just that it was 2 interacting entities or beings communicating with each other. Oh, that's cool. I like that.
That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
This is good.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, let's show those pictures so people can see how simple it is to make this thing.
Yeah, and is that website? Do you want me to pull it up here? I've got the.
Oh, yeah, or you could, or I could share screen.
This is what I've got here. Let me make sure I got the right.
That's good. That's good.
Okay, so this is, and I'm going to leave the links in the video description box because I want to give credit to the person that put this stuff up here.
Yes.
And this is on Flickr, and then I think this is the person's site, Instructables. So instructables.com.
This antenna right here, that's wrong. There's two antennas, and they are set about an inch apart. And in some of the writings I read about it, is that that inch apart is important. It should be two antennas, and the size of them, I did not have an understanding of what's very important. It could be bigger or smaller, but they had to be close together. And then there is another picture here. You can go.
I'm going to let you do screen share. I'll let you do screen share. I just want to have links for all the stuff you share. So I'll make sure everybody has that in the video description box.
Okay, I will bring up my picture here. There we go. And then let me see. There we go. Now I am going to screen share.
Not on my end. I don't see it yet.
I haven't shared yet. So hang on just a second. I will get it. Huh.
No worries. Take your time.
That was not as easy as I thought. So, no, that was not the one I was looking for. Okay. There we go. Yeah, there we go. Now I'm gonna get there.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I have your attention, please? Stand by.
Yeah, I'm a little slow, you know.
Oh, so no worries, man. No worries at all. I appreciate the opportunity. There we go. Starting to. It's getting there. It's still blank. There it is.
Okay, I'm sharing both video and sound, so you should be able to hear me.
Yep.
Okay, good. Now here is, this is what it looks like from I guess here on the right at the top here, that what it looks like. You take a jar and then you put together the components that is laying inside of the jar right there, so it stays out of moisture, so it doesn't get contaminated and start, you know, rusting or whatever. But also this antenna or this contraption altogether is sensitive to light because of the diode in it. So it is best to use this thing when you are in a darkened room. So we should remember that for the people that wants to make this one. And here is where this is what it looks like inside the jar. When you put it all together, you solder it together. Looks very simple. Now there is another form of antenna also that is used by many. And from what I have heard, there really is not much difference in the reception. Some of the reception for some of the people that has done this is fairly clear, and others, they have a lot of static with it. Static usually comes when you are in a lit up room because of the light interference of the diodes. And also, if you are a little bit smarter than the average bear, you can also plug it into your computer so you can take out the static in the computer. But this antenna here is a little bit more tricky because it's, you got to wind it here from one end over to the other end. And then you use this cradle that you put together, because this two pyramids together here, or actually cones together, they are not hooked up to anything except laying inside of this cradle that they have put together for the antenna. And here, they were doing an experiment with light. it was totally quiet, and you could have a fairly clear reception when it was pitch black or next to it in the room. They put a candle next to it, and you had a little static just from the light from a candle. So that's something to remember. And here is another one where I do not understand what that picture was, because it did not relate to anything that I've read about. So it's just looks like a scale or something there. I don't know what that was. And so this is what it looks like. And now what happens, I would recommend people to go to YouTube and possibly other sites also. There is several people that have videos on YouTube where you can hear the voices coming back through, and you can hear what they say. Some of them have a lot of static to it, but it's still discernible that there's something coming through. One of them, what happened is that he could not understand what they said. There was a voice on there talking, but he couldn't figure out what the person or the ghost or whoever said. But when he reversed it backwards, then he could understand it. And it's in one case there, it said, "You must help us. You must help us." The spirits kept saying that over and over again. "You must help us." So evidently they were stuck in a place where they didn't want to be.
That's kind of spooky, man.
Yeah. Now, there is a reason for that. And that is one of the things I write about in my book, very clearly actually explaining how the astral world and how the fifth dimension interact with ours. We are here in 4 dimensions: length, width, height, and time, which is the 4th dimension. And now if you go to the 5th, you're outside, where you are looking into the 4th dimension. That is just like looking in the mirror. Everything is backwards. So when that ghost was talking, it turned up backward on the recording that came through this spirit radio. So if you have a way to do that, go ahead and record it on your computer, so you could reverse it, or maybe a tape recorder, or however way you can reverse it, you may be able to get it clearly. And if it doesn't make sense, even though there is a voice on there.
So let me show his YouTube channel here real quick. I'm going to do another screen share here. And
Well, let me get off screen share then.
Okay. Because I think he should get more subscribers. This is the guy that I think is linked to that page, and it's Mr. Fix It Rick. So subscribe, hit all notifications. But he did a video on the spooky Tesla Spirit Radio, you can see here.
Hey, there you go. That's a patent, yeah.
Yeah, so there's the patent. And I just find this absolutely incredible. We can get in the soul phone in a minute, but there was some other things that it was reportedly able to do, right? Like report weather patterns or something, or
Yep. Yeah, he could actually. He using this the spirit radio that he called it. He was able to hear the static from thunderstorms miles and miles away, where you could not even see them. So cool. Yeah, so he used it to hear thunderstorms, so he can predict thunderstorms actually.
Okay. And what else was it used for?
Well, spirit communication. He could, to a certain degree, predict the weather a little bit, but not necessarily in his location. But I think that's all I can think of.
Now, have you made one of these?
No, I haven't, but I'm itching to do it. Just see, my knowledge of electronics ranks right up with the village idiot. So I just can't do it. And I'm in my immediate friendship, I don't really know anybody that's good at electronics, but I would love to have one.
Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about putting one of these together now and doing some experiments with it, maybe trying some different sizes and taking it to some different locations and seeing
Yeah.
what it does on ley lines and high altitudes. And wow, man, that is so cool. Now, what else were you gonna? You said there was like several different things you were gonna share with us about
Oh,
the other side.
here's a hint for you. Once you put this thing together, grab a, okay, if you have the guts, grab this thing with a long extension cord and go to a graveyard.
Does it?
I did that with another contraption that I put together while I was back in Omaha 20 some years ago. And we went to a graveyard one time, me and two other guys. Yeah, we heard some things, and one of them, he split immediately. And I'll talk about that in a second, because I have a drawing of it, and I'm going to show you that here in a bit.
Yeah.
But first, I tell you, there's a lot of credibility with this, because there are institutions of higher learning that is built this spirit radio, experimenting with it. And the next one that I would love for us to talk about is the soul phone. That has phenomenal credibility. That is because the University of Arizona, Dr. Schwartz, him and his team has built this computerized contraption that will receive information from out of the physical, and they can communicate also out of the physical, out of the physical. Because what they're doing is that they haven't been able to use the voice yet, but they type in questions, run it through the circuitry, through an antenna, and out. On the other side, somebody or something is answering that question. So it comes back in a form of yes or no. That's as far, yeah, there you go. It comes back as yes or no right now. That is all they're able to do at this time. But he says that we are developing new ways to communicate. It says, so we will be able to get voice that will be shown shortly. This is one of the last things that he said. This is Dr. Gary Schwartz with the University of Arizona that is heading up this project. In fact, they patented this method of spirit communication. Actually, they call it interdimensional communication device. Believe it or not, they got a patent. And I'm a patent holder. I know what it takes to get a patent. You will not get a patent on anything unless you have a working model or it is sound scientific principles that is backing it up. So here's something for the atheists again. And they're running it through the computer and they get the answer back. Let's say if the question was a yes or a no, the answer come back green light for yes or red light for no. So it gets very interesting when they are answer those questions. And so far in what he is saying is that so far they have found all the answers to be correct. They're not just guesses. So my interpretation of that is that they're not only talking to spirits on the other side, because they may not be right all the time. They are talking to a source of universal knowledge. I don't know what you think about that, Rex, but that's my opinion.
what I'm seeing here is, or thinking of when you're describing this, as I'm reading through this, is the questions that I have are like, all right, well, is it artificial intelligence? Is it the Akashic records? Is it a combination of just I don't know, man. I mean, certainly I want to believe. Like, is it like 99% accurate with the yes and no questions? Is there somewhere where it shows that? And like how much kind of
No,
questions they
I read
ask?
I read about this several places, and I read it somewhere. I'm not so sure if it is in this site where they talk about the answers were almost entirely correct.
So wow. Okay. So this is what I see right here. 6 experiments involving 2,000 sessions and millions of pieces of data concluded in early 2020. These experiments incorporated standard scientific requirements such as control groups, blinded experimenter conditions, replication, multiple test centers, and more. Results of the first 2 experiments were published in Explore, the Journal of Science and Healing. And then there's an additional paper about all 6 experiments to date, and that's being completed. But okay, so it requires 25 minutes of data analysis time before the average responses to 10 questions are available.
And they say that this is evidence, amazing evidence of life after death. And that is his interpretation of it, that you're talking to somebody or something that is answering from after death. I am not so sure of that. It could be, but it could also be that they're tapping into a universal mind or a source that has higher knowledge than what just a ghost would have.
Yeah. Now I'm trying to figure out if this is saying that.
Oh, here we go. Down there, second line. A rapid and 99% reliable yes and no answers will also be more impressive. Oh, okay. Okay, that was just.
Yeah, it's not saying that it is. I noticed that also. Of course, it's going to be more impressive if there's a 99% reliable yes or no answer. The way they kind of word that, it's like, oh, it's 99% reliable. Oh, you have to read it twice. But no, man, this is fascinating. I just want to see like the questions that they ask, what was yes, what was no, how many different people they collaborated with. But it looks like in 2000 there was 2,000 sessions. What is a session?
I think I got, this is several years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. I got on the University of Arizona website, and I got to his pages where he talked about some of the research. And I think that's where I saw that they were almost, I think the language was that it was almost entirely correct.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I can't wait to see where this goes next. What are you doing with these guys? Are you just reading and keeping up with them, or are you getting access to their technology or equipment or any of the projects?
No. I met Dr. Schwartz 21 years ago when I came to Tucson, and I was doing hosting and producing 2 TV shows here. And I met him because I wanted to interview him, and he wanted to, but it just never fit with the schedules, and it never happened. So now, I've been following him a little bit over the years, and he's an incredible guy. So I really would I would say people look into this, because this is a science that is coming. It is working now in its conceptual starting form. But
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm looking at his credentials too, and he's a senior professor at the University of Arizona.
And he has an advisory board. If you go to that website I sent you, go and scroll down, share that again, because this is important that people see. There's some tremendously credible people involved with him. Scroll down a little bit, and then you'll see. Let me see. No, Yeah. I think we're on the wrong page. The front page is where home. There you go.
No, no, no,
Okay.
no.
Now we can go down. You see the people that is working with him. This is Dr. Schwartz. And it's an interesting speech that he does. Here is the people that is working with him. There are Stephen Schwartz, I think it is his son. And then Raymond Moody is working with him. Eben Alexander. He's a doctor that died and had some phenomenal experiences, came back and wrote books and talked about it. And Lynn McTaggart. These are some of the most credible people in the world in this arena.
That's cool.
Yep.
That's great. I'm really looking forward to seeing this grow. And there was a movie that came out a couple years ago. I think was it Robert Redford that was in it, where there's this technology that verified life after this physical passing, and physical death. And it was like a lot of people started taking their own because they knew that there was something on the other side. And then it brought up the moral question: should you, should you not? Da, 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 da. And it will be interesting to see if there is verification or enough to make people believe that there is continuation on the other side. I wonder what the implications will be on society.
It will be enlightenment.
Right on.
Absolutely enlightenment. Now, you mentioned that some people discovering that is nice on the other side, so to speak, then they would take their own life. That does not solve the problems of what they have here, because whatever you have here, you bring with you in your mind. And it creates new problem. When you cut something short like that, you may have to come back and do over again what you screwed up by cutting it short. So it gets really tricky on the other side.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, oh, please go ahead. We have a little bit of a delay here, folks. Just a FYI. So.
Okay. Yeah. Now this is these are the two first ones that. But there is something that I discovered. Now this is decades ago that I found out. There was a guy over in France, and I believe it was in the late 60s, early 70s that I read foreign newspapers, and he was in southern France, and he could take pictures of dead folks all the time. He got himself a box camera, those black boxes that they used to have in the 60s. I had one just like that. And it was a lead-based film on it, which for some reason had easier way to pick up higher vibratory light, which could show things that our eyes couldn't pick up. Now, he also built himself a Tesla coil. This Tesla coil, there was a picture with it when he was standing next to the Tesla coil, and the Tesla coil was about the height of his knees. So it was, sizable a little bit. It was not a toy. And he went out to the graveyard, and he put the Tesla coil next to a freshly dug grave. Usually they have put somebody in there hours ago. And he had an extension cord, and he plugged it in a wall somewhere, usually at a church or something. And he dragged that cord out to the Tesla coil and plugged that in. He walked away about, it looked like 20 feet or 20, 30 feet, start taking pictures. And very often, he ended up seeing the outline, kind of like a fuzzy outline of the person in the ground, standing next to the Tesla coil or the grave. Because the Tesla coil put out a bubble of electromagnetic energy. And as long as the person was inside the bubble, but away from the camera, so it did not interfere with the film, he was able to take the pictures. So he took those pictures of these dead folks and that have departed, and he was showing them in town to people, you know. Old Jean, you know, he died 3 days ago. He's been on the ground a day now, and here's a picture of him we took today. Now, this scared the daylights out of people in town, and they turned on him. They thought he was working with Satan. Of course, you know, that's the first choice that comes up. And he said in the interview in that newspaper that he had to move out of town, he says, because he was afraid for his life.
Jeez.
So here we go again for somebody that has a Tesla coil, and the size of it, I would say it should put out at least 500,000 volts, probably 1 or 2 million volts. And the more volts, the bigger bubble, the more you can probably get. But then again, the bigger Tesla coil, the more expensive it is. So if you build one that is about 2 feet tall, you're probably okay to get some pictures like that. Or just experiment with it, because you can get some pictures.
Now, have you studied the Shroud of Turin?
The what?
The Shroud of Turin?
Yes. Yeah.
So I was talking to my friend David Dubine the other day about the Shroud of Turin, and we talked about some of the experiments that were done in the 1800s and early 1900s with electricity, and electricity bringing in these entities or people that had lived physically before, you know, trying to tap into their soul and bring it back into these energy fields. And we had talked about the possibility of that being a reason for certain control grids that are supposedly used for cell phones and are used for cell phones, you know, I mean, clearly, but could it also be used for another purpose to bring in certain entities? And now we're talking about this, these electrical fields and such. This is fascinating. How far, I mean, do you think they can actually bring in people from the other side into these energy fields?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I think also now for the Tesla Spirit Radio, you know, people were doing that in their living room at home. They turned it on and they kept asking questions, and answers came. Or there was just, they could hear the spirit start talking to them before they had actually asked any questions. So it tells me two things. They can see what he's doing. They understand what he's doing. When he plugs it in, they know that, hey, wait a minute, I could talk to the guy now, and they talk to him. Or there is a distortion of time. So he's thinking about asking a question, and they get the question before he has said it, so they answer before he has asked the question. We know there's a distortion of time from between fifth and the fourth dimension. And that's, but either way, that's not important. It's just that we do get voices. That's the important part.
You know, and then have you considered what it's like? Okay, so you're communicating with somebody on the other side, and then they're communicating back, but how are you connecting to them? And then how is the residual after effects coming back here?
I think another way to interpret that for me would be, how can they hear us being one dimension away from us? That would be my more so. I think whenever we speak, there is a thought going with it. That thoughts are things. So thoughts are somewhat interdimensionals. So maybe they are picking up the thought and they think that it is him talking, so they answer back. Maybe the thought, or their voice could be heard, picked up through the antenna. or the guy in the living, excuse me, the guy in the living room, the antenna pick up the vibration of the voice and transfers it. I don't really know.
Yeah. If we did know, then it'd be easier to create the ultimate device
Yeah.
then.
Yeah,
Just,
absolutely.
and this could be the next step. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so what else?
Well, back in Omaha, I had there was something that I saw in a download that I had many, many years ago, and I built this little contraption. And in fact, I should probably share screen to show that thing.
Yeah, please.
Oops, that's not the one. So let me, okay, let me see here. There we go. Now we're getting somewhere. Okay. Huh. Where? I don't find it. Well, huh. I don't see. Okay, it's a picture that I have on the side, so it's not on my. Yeah, I don't think I can share it, but I can do the next best thing. I
Cool.
have a picture over here, so I can show it in front of the camera. Let me just expand myself a little bit here. Here is what it looks like. It is I took two coat hangers, built up. Actually, by the time I was done, I bent them, and it came out about 66 degrees or something like that. Down at the bottom, when they all came together down here, I put that above a tape recorder at the time, where the microphone was right at the apex of the upside down apex of the pyramid here. And I wound it around all four corners like this with a wire. So it turned out to be an upside down pyramid shaped antenna, kind of. And I kept it right above the microphone on this recording device. And we tried it in our living room, and we got some things that there were things that came on the recording, and it was a little hard to understand, but there were some things there. But we took it out to a graveyard one time. 3 of us went there, three or four. And we had it hooked up, and then we turned it on, and we had voices talking. Not all the voices were talking to us, but it was enough for one of them. That guy, he split really fast. He just was out of there. He didn't want to hear anymore. And we took some recordings, and I know I got that tape somewhere in a box somewhere. It would be kind of fun to find it again. But this is what it looked like. And it was just like an upside, oh gosh, it's hard to point to this. Triangular, upside down, wound around, kind of like an antenna would be, put above a tape recorder or a voice recording device these days, right above the microphone, and then start talking to someone. You just might be able to get somewhere. And because we did, and I don't think we're very special in that way. I think most people can hear stuff. And another thing that we can do, it's more like a one-way communication, sometimes two ways. If the spirits that we are talking to listen, and that we can leave them messages, because Just because they're dead, they still know how to read. And from the fifth dimension down into the fourth dimension, they can see us, but we cannot see them normally. Except for, I know you're familiar with this, Rex, shadow people.
What's your take on shadow people?
I think there are entities, I see them all the time around here. And there are entities that is around us all the time. We are never alone. They are around us all the time. They're living their lives. We're living our lives, because the reason that they're out there on the side and not in front of us is because it's been found that the periphery of the retina in the back of the eye is able to pick up higher vibratory light than the center of the retina can do. So out there, we can see slightly above of what we can normally see in front of us. That's why they show up. And some of the stuff I see is there's light over there, and when you look over there, they're gone. When you see something, the shadow over here, look over there, they're gone, because now you're looking at it from the center of the retina again. So if we see somebody like that, wave to them, let them know that we see them. Maybe they will be more interested in us and can maybe, who knows, maybe they can hear us. What do you think of that?
I think that some people are going to say, yeah. And then other people are going to say, no, I don't want that thing knowing that I can see it. And,
I know.
but also on a personal note, I have a very close friend that has RH negative blood, and she has like a lifetime of just fascinating and strange experiences, but she's always had this shadow person follow her around, and other people can see the shadow person. So it's not just her. And she thinks it's connected to her blood type. And I mean, I think it's connected to a lot more than that, but I do notice there are more encounters, it seems, on a statistical scale with people that have RH negative blood versus those that don't. And I wonder, is it like a guardian? Is it an ancestor? Is it somebody that's overseeing what they're doing and seems to be connected more? It's very interesting. I know there's more copper in the blood, in the RH negative blood.
Yeah.
And there's like the electronics, or the interference with electronics is a lot more intense. But it's interesting. There's a connection there somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you have RH negative blood?
Say again?
Do you have RH negative blood? Your blood type is RH negative?
No, I don't think so. I think it was A something. I'm not sure what it is.
Yeah. I think it's about 15% of the population approximately have that.
Really?
Yeah. And if you like, let's say your wife had RH negative blood, and she gets pregnant, and then she would have to take like a certain shot to prevent the blood from attacking the baby's blood if it's not RH negative.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a very mysterious, lot of mystery behind it. Yeah. But anyway, so just had to ask. But so you've been seeing the shadow people for like, is it more intense now than it was before?
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
That also could be other reasons. We're growing spiritually. We are going through a process now of ascending into higher vibration, and you don't really know what is the cause for it. But when it really comes down to it, we don't see through our eyes. It's not the eyes that is seeing what we see. It is a center in the brain that sees, because you may have seen those girls. I watched here about a month ago. There was a girl from India. They put blindfold on her, actually double blindfold. And they gave her a book, and she was reading the book through the blindfold. Have you seen those the videos?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Google that sometime. Reading blindfolded or something like that. You will find some phenomenal. There are several of them. that can do this. They see with the mind. They don't see with the eyes. The eyes is just a tool of the mind to see. So this gets that gets very interesting.
Our
And
mind gives us a hallucinated reality.
yeah, that's right. Now you're getting somewhere.
Yeah. And we're the
Oh,
conspiracy theorists. It's a wild world we live in, man. What is
yeah,
going on?
gosh. It's not a conspiracy theory anymore if you can prove it.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also when it comes to leaving messages for spiritual entities, they are not in 4 dimensions like us. They're in the 5th. So when they look into us, our reality, things are backwards. So if you write the messages, I would suggest write the message backwards, because then they can read it better. And make color contrasts. Let's say black on white or red on white, or some big, don't use yellow ink on white paper. That just is not enough color contrast to stand out. It's because looking in from the astral world in here, it's a little fuzzy. It's not totally clear the way I have seen it as an astral traveler. So hope it may be the same way for somebody that is there permanent. And now I would say, if you have a lot of shadow people too in the house, you may want to clean the house. There is ways to do that, you know, incense and things like that. So, and there are people that is good at it. I'm not good at that. I kind of enjoy those folks. It doesn't bother me at all. So, but we know that we are never alone. And these people out there that is there all the time, they may not be spirits as we think of it. It may be some entities that has never had a physical body, but they are here for a purpose, maybe for their learning in order to be guides for us or something like that. But some of them are disembodied entities, and they can be confused. In fact, in my book about that, I really go into the spiritual world explained very well. I think you have a copy of that book, don't you, Rex?
Absolutely, I do. And
Yeah,
I think everybody should.
yeah,
There's a
because
reason it's like almost all 5 stars
yeah,
in your reviews. You know what I mean? So lots of reviews, lots of 5-star reviews, and it's almost all 5 stars.
yeah, that most of them are 5 stars. And because I made it simple. The concepts are explained first before you get into the detail. That way, hey, there you go. How about that? That looks familiar. Yeah.
Always a couple trolls, always a couple haters. You know, if you don't
Yeah.
get a couple haters in there, then you know then you're not pushing enough. You know what I mean?
And in fact, yeah, I had a 2 in there once too. He
Yeah, man.
said, yeah, he said in this in his evaluation of the book that that was a good book, but there was too many spelling errors in there, so he gave it a 2.
Oh man, I could get past the spelling errors. That means you're human. You know, it happens.
Yeah.
Are you human?
Huh?
I'm just joking. I'm just joking. I had
I
to throw a
haven't
pattern interrupt in there on
I
you.
haven't checked lately, but I must be.
Oh
Actually,
man.
I prove over and over again that I'm human because I'm doing stupid things all the time.
We're very unique creatures. Very
Yeah,
unique.
we are. And another way to communicate with them, though, is 2 more things that I want to mention. You can actually communicate with the spiritual world through dreams. And the way that we would do that is when let's say we want to communicate with a special person that has departed. We keep a visual image of them, And then as we lay down and fall asleep, keep saying it over again. Visit me, talk to me, talk to me, talk to me. Keep saying this over and over again as you fall asleep. Because when you fall asleep, you are going from conscious, some vibration of thought pattern and brainwave pattern, some 30s down to you passing through the alpha all the way down into theta, and down into theta or below, that's where you sleep. So when you go through that range of frequency of brainwave pattern, that's when you transmit out to the universe. And that's where you can get answers. And there's done some experiments with this where psychic people, they very often, two ways they communicate through with other minds, and that is the bottom of the alpha range at about 7 to 7.4 is a good number. But then also, if you the brainwave patterns go above 35 to 40, the majority of brainwave pattern up there also, you have a good way to communicate with other minds. So both of them, but in between, we're kind of average, I suppose. But when you fall asleep like that, thinking of someone, they could get the message. It's kind of like calling them up and say, hey, talk to me, or ask a question, or visit in my dream. So that's another way to do it. And the best way to do this is through astral travel. You get out of the body and you are in their environment. And in fact, if you go to broadcastteamalpha.com, Nori Love and I, we have some classes there, and there's one class under classes, of course, where I teach astral travel. And it's not that hard to do. You can do this as well as in this book. I talk about how to do it. In fact, in here, I teach people how to use their minds in ways that normally would thought of be impossible. So once you, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, give somebody that's interested in practicing astral projection, like one exercise or one technique that you would use to build up that. I mean, I know the elevator technique, the rope technique, the bouncing technique, where you're like bouncing your consciousness off of walls and stuff like that, and you start to actually feel it. But I know you write extensively about it in your book.
Yeah. Yeah, the elevator, just pulling yourself up a rope, it's okay. A lot of people have been able to do it by that. I got another one also. In fact, it takes about 60 to 45 seconds. We could do it right now if you want.
Really? Yeah.
Okay. Visualize yourself, and a lot of the listeners, they're sitting in a chair somewhere. That would be a good place to start. Just if you're driving cars or flying airplanes right now, turn this off. You're not going to close your eyes doing that. So close your eyes if you are in a safe place. And visualize yourself sitting in the chair. Now visualize yourself raising up out of the chair. Visualize yourself standing in front of the chair, looking away from the chair. Take 3 steps forward and turn around and look at yourself in the chair. Now you see yourself sitting in that chair. You know what you look like. You know what your hair is like. You know your clothes you have on. You know where your hands are. You see yourself in the chair. You know that your mind right now is outside of the chair, looking back at your body in the chair. See yourself in that chair. You're in that chair physically. but your mind is outside of the chair, looking back at you in the chair. So now turn around again, look away from the chair and back up 3 steps. Back and sit down into yourself in the chair. Now, the more you do this, the more it's going to become comfortable and familiar to your mind. There's some good stuff in the book about that, so that you can look at if you have read it, or maybe you should. So try to do this a few times. And then there are other methods, you know, the elevator method, and I kind of pulling up a rope. That's one that actually I've done in the past, and it's a good one. So think of it this way. It's just like using any muscle. The more you use the muscle, the stronger it gets. Keep practicing. For myself, nothing has come easy for me. I always have to practice more than most people to do things. It's just that I never gave up. And I must have tried astral travel, I don't know, 50 times or so before I was able to look back at myself in the bed. And that was a different experience. Really different. Until I figured it out that, yeah, wait a minute, this is what I really wanted to do. I did it. And then I started looking around, floating through other rooms in the house and stuff. And then I went back. My first trip was very short. Got back in the body again. So
sorry. I was going to say, I was looking at the comments in the chat, and I want to thank everybody for being here with us. And Blaine said the chair technique's brilliant. Going to be doing this method for the next few weeks.
Good deal. Hey, when you do and you get out, contact me. I want to hear from you, see how it works for you. I'm on Facebook, so you can get me there. That'll be a good place. And Broadcast Team Alpha, we're there too.
And I subscribe to your YouTube channel. So, and that's Broadcast Team Alpha. Let me show people this real quick here.
Yeah.
Do a screen share. You do some great podcasts as well. And then when you subscribe, make sure you also click the bell for all notifications. And then you can click through the videos.
Yeah.
And you do some, you know, you talk about like walk-ins.
Yeah.
What's your take on walk-ins?
Well, it is a real concept. It does happen where somebody in their presence, both physically and spiritually, they, for some reason, either don't want to be here anymore, or there is another presence that comes and say, hey, there is something that you're supposed to do and you're not doing it. Would you like to trade with me? That is, I'm playing on words here, but that's really what's happening. And if somebody don't want to be here in the first place, they come in and say, okay, I'm out of here, and you go in and take the body. So there are people that have gotten a new spirit or soul essence in the physical body, and they have new tastes of tastes and likes, and they have a totally new outlook. But they still have the brain memory of the previous person. So they have most of the knowledge that the previous person had. And in excess of that, they have the knowledge of the spirit moving in. So they become very bright and more focused and concentrated on what they were supposed to do. And this is going to be an interesting show coming up here this Tuesday, actually tomorrow, at 8 o'clock East Coast time. We're going to have this late. In fact, you really should interview her, Rex, because she's sharp. Yeah, and we're gonna hear her story on, because she has memories of before and after that she came in. So we're gonna listen to that.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And someone in the chat wanted me to ask you, do you think that astral travel will become easier once ascension happens?
It is already easier, and we most of us hasn't ascended yet, but we're still here. But it is becoming easier and easier the higher vibration that we get, because the veil is getting thinner, and we're able to pierce that veil easier than we did before. So this is something that you're going to see some changes over the next months or so, and it's going to get very interesting. Though when people going into the astral world, and I really recommend the book for this because it's explained very well. Once you step out of the body, you step into the fifth dimension. And it all depends on the vibration of the mind of the person that is doing the astral travel. If you're a highly spiritual person, you may bypass the lower levels of the astral world altogether and move into higher vibration. You could end up in the sixth dimension. And if you are just, selfish person or not necessarily spiritual, you end up in the lower levels of the fifth dimension of the astral world, where it's kind of the garbage dump of the spiritual world, because that's where ghosts are trapped. And it's not a place where you want to spend a lot of time, because they're usually confused and some of them are mad. So if you come out there with a lot of fear in your mind, you're going to draw those entities that have the same kind of fear. You're going to draw them to you. And you can ignore them and move on and do things. And just, I would recommend very highly, if you know that you are just stepping out into a kind of a grayish, fuzzy area, don't spend a lot of time there. Try to accelerate yourself with spiritual thought up into the higher vibrations.
Yeah.
And there's another thing too. If you have a friend that is also astral traveler or like to be, both of you try to get out and travel together. That can be a lot of fun. And since we're on the subject, where can you go? What can you do? In the astral form, that is the astral vehicle of the body. That is more like a grayish substance that has physical form, but it's not very clear. So you could say that you are still connected to the physical body through a silvery cord. So if you are going to go across the galaxy, you may run out of astral substance by the time you get there, and then you're snapped back into your body, because it will not break. It will not, there is a limit to your distance. Though, if you travel by consciousness, if your consciousness goes out there, there is no limitations to distance, because that consciousness is not attached to the physical body. So this is explained a lot better in the book, because it is something that once you start having experiences, you walk into an environment that you don't understand necessarily. It's foreign to you. And it is surprising things in there. If you're a spiritual person, surrounding yourself with a bright white light, when you go out in your mind, you can visualize that light into existence around you. Or you have spiritual thoughts, you don't have anything to worry about. Even if you don't have anything to worry about, because there is nothing out there that can get hurt. There's nothing physical out there. There is just the spiritual you, or the astral you. I've been talking a lot here, Jax. I don't know what you want to say.
I got my popcorn's gone, man. I mean, this is fascinating. This is absolutely incredible. And I'm thinking of the different frequencies and these different technologies that are available with cheap parts, been around for, what, almost 120 years now.
Mhm.
And it's like, why aren't people more interested in this stuff? I don't know, man. They'd rather play Angry Birds or go fish on their phone or what. I mean, it's just the silliest games on phones now.
Oh God.
I don't know,
Yeah,
man.
that those things, they're so mindless that my eyes glaze over when I start talking to people. When people talk to me about these things.
Yeah, and their eyes glaze over when you talk to them about something that takes a little bit of intelligence to think about.
Yeah,
Diana
yeah, I
says
know.
you look like the member of a heavy metal band.
The
That's
what?
awesome.
The what band?
You look like the member of a heavy metal band. You should take that as a badge of honor. That's awesome. I wish I
You're
looked
not
like
the
the
first.
member of a heavy metal band.
You're not the first one that said that.
That's rad. He is. He used to sing for Rush. He was the lead singer of
Yeah.
Rush for years. Rush is
Another.
pretty awake, man. They seem to know what's up, right? My
Yeah.
mind is not for
Yeah.
rent to any god or any government. They knew that 40 years ago.
Yeah, I know. Those were the days.
Right on.
Actually, let's spend about 2 minutes on near-death experiences.
Yeah, let's do it.
Because there have been people that died on the operating table, flatlined altogether. There were no activity up here in the brain. And they find themselves floating around up around the ceiling, looking down at themselves on the operating table, seeing the doctors and the nurses frantic, trying to revive them again. And then some of them have left the operating room, been pulled through a tunnel. The end of the tunnel, they met their mom or somebody said, no, no, son, you're not supposed to be here yet. You got to go back. There's more work to do. You have things to do yet. So they wouldn't let them in. So they were snapped back, or they went back to their body. The doctors were able to reawaken them. And now they have stories to tell. There are hundreds of thousands of people that have had this happen. And they talk about it. I mean, my question to the world is, why in the world should we not believe them? This is real. There's something at the other end of that tunnel that first time through, they just wasn't able to get in. And another thing that is, when they come back, maybe they talk to the doctors about it. Many doctors have come forward and said, yes, we have heard patients saying that, but we don't know what it is. There is one particular story about a doctor that said one patient came back and told them that this happened, but he wasn't going through a tunnel. He floated through the ceiling and he was on top of the roof looking around. And he told the doctor that he could see everywhere around. And next to a pipe on the roof, there was a tennis shoe laying there. And the doctor thought, gee, that's curious. And then he got to think about it. He went up on the roof, and by golly, there was a tennis shoe laying next to that pipe. So the patient had to have been there. There is no reason why that patient had to know that there was a tennis shoe on the roof. That alone convinced the doctor to start looking more into this, and he became a proponent of it. And there is so many people with so many stories. In the Western world, you can, when you're going through the tunnel, as many of these people have explained, we are clothed in Western clothing. In the Middle East, there are people, or India, there are people going through the same tunnel, except for that they got turbans on. They are dressed in their clothing. So it seems like we are going through the same tunnel, but we are different all the way up, probably to the point where we get through the tunnel, where we may have a different view of things. I don't know. It appears that they have a different view once they're home, so to speak.
So what do you think about people that say they don't want to go to the tunnel because they think that's going to like be a reincarnation trap and bring them right back to make them do it all over again? Have you heard that before?
Yeah, I've heard that before, but I would rather go through and get a life review to figure out what did I do right, what could I have done better, and then get the option. Do you want to go back and learn more, or do you want to stay here and learn with us? That is the choices that is given to most people. The other choice, if you don't go through the tunnel, you're stuck becoming a ghost. And the world is full of ghosts, of people that don't want to go through or don't know how to come through. And the other thing is that hardly anybody or nobody dies alone. There is usually somebody there to meet you, to guide you to, let me play on words again. Once you step out of the body and you die, there's usually somebody there saying, okay, you graduated now, let's go home. And if you are too attached to the physical, you may just not want to go yet. Let's say you have a business that is flourishing or business in trouble and you want to see what happens. Or if you're too much in love with your family or people, you don't want to leave, you want to stay with them and see that they're okay, then you get trapped here. I would highly recommend, and this is what I'm going to do, go through the tunnel if you find it, or go to the light and then get your re-education and then come back and visit, because you can still see that they're okay, but now you are home, so you have a way to go back and forth.
It's so
That's my
fascinating.
opinion, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And, you know, I really like the way you bring different perspectives to certain subjects and the way you connect the dots and weave it together. And that's one of the great things about your book, Spiritual Science, Higher Conscious Thinking, and How to Access the Universal Consciousness, Learn How to Expand the Power of the Mind at Every Level of Existence. Almost all 5 stars across the board, 327 reviews. People love it. I love it. I've got a copy of it signed by Aage himself. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to add a little bit to the near death, to the NDEs. So I have several friends that have had near death experiences, and they got tested on the other side. Or like on the in between. They literally got tested and they passed the test. And I almost like want to tear up when wow, my friend that told me about like his experience, just wow, man. Anyway, so it's so genuine. Then they come back and they're like different people. They're you know, they want to do everything and learn more, and just they're so on point and dialed in. And it's really cool to hear about some of these experiences, because it makes you feel like we're more than our physical bodies. You know, it's amazing.
Besides, they are never afraid of death anymore. They've already seen it. They know what's there. There's nothing to be afraid of. Nobody dies. They just move into a different room of reality. Remember the guy about 1990 some years ago, he said, in my father's house, there is many rooms. Well, you know him as Jesus. Yeah, there's a lot of rooms.
Now, some people would ask, like in the chat, some people are asking, how do you know the tunnel isn't a trap? Like, is there a way that you could verify, you know, whoever it is that's meeting you on the other side isn't some shape-shifting hologram that's trying to convince you to go into the tunnel? That's some people's concern, and I can appreciate that. Now let me give my opinion on that. If I was to meet somebody at that point, and I was able to consciously think about it, like, okay, I'm gonna, is this really my grandpa?
Yeah.
I would maybe ask some questions to see how he responds
Yeah.
that only he would know. And that would give me more confidence personally.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a very good point. You may want to verify a little bit, but another thing that you can verify from yourself, and that is the feeling. Once you meet someone, if they are the same vibration you are, there is a match and it feels comfortable. If they are a very negative person, or I guess the religions would call them demons or yens or jinns, that's what the Muslims are calling them, then there will be a difference of vibration. So you will feel uncomfortable, because on that side of reality and the spiritual world, feelings are much more prevalent. They come easier, and you can feel more than you can hear.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, it's a good point. How do you know? I know one way to find out: do it. But
Well,
I personally have no problem with that tunnel, because there's so many people that has been through the tunnel, gone and got the re-education, and then they come back and they say, yeah, it's okay. They will come and meet you at the end of the tunnel, and things are good.
yeah.
So I'm not worried about that, but it's a very good thought, actually, because unless you are convinced of something, we really don't know.
Right. Absolutely. And I remember I used to get into these real philosophical conversations and debates with a coworker of mine, and he's agnostic. And I would get really deep on certain subjects, and it always go, well, how do you know? How do you know? How do you know? How do you really know? Well, how do you really know? And it kind of stuck with me for a while. I was like, yeah, like how do you really know? How do you really know? And then I would get into other philosophical conversations with, people that do have very strong beliefs, and they would say, well, you got to pick something. I mean, you got to believe in something. And that's right. You do have to kind of pick something and have belief, yet have an open enough mind that if enough information presents itself to change that belief, I can say, hey, I was wrong. I'm willing to learn. And, when people stay on the same thing their whole career or their whole life, they better be right, or that's not much growth, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here in Tucson, about 2 years ago, there was a Chinese student that was here. He was studying computers. And I asked him one time, we got to talk about what it was in China and so on. And it was all superficial, spiritually thinking. I asked him, what do the Chinese people think about God? And he says, oh, yes, he says, it's science. Science is our God. So, see, I asked him a trick question, and he fell right in the trap of it, because it's, oh, excellent. So then what do you understand about quantum mechanics that explain that there is more than this physical reality? The quantum mechanics now on the blackboard can prove that there is at least 11 different dimensional existences in this bubble of universe. Now, there's a lot more, because there's subdivisions to each one of those levels of existence. So I asked him, what about the other existences that quantum mechanics speak of? That is pure science. And he just went mum. He couldn't talk about it anymore, because it was way outside of his perception, because he was all embedded in Newtonian science.
And it turned into a religion.
Yeah.
Like you said, atheists have their own religion, and that's science or whatever. Some people it's just a play on words, man. If you really think about it, it's all a big play on words, because I could say a sentence with 5 words to you. You might have 5 different definitions to the 5 that were in my mind. You have to be really precise when you talk to people. And then, like you did, you open that person's mind up and they immediately shut it back down because they're not allowing themselves to think a specific way.
Yeah.
And, be open-minded, but don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out on the sidewalk. Otherwise, somebody might step on it, but it's like a parachute. It's got to open to work.
Yeah.
It's not open. It doesn't work. And,
the parachute is not good for you unless it opens.
I ain't jumping out of a plane with a parachute that doesn't open.
You did?
No, I'm not. I'm not going to jump out of a plane with a parachute that doesn't open. It better open, right? I mean, somebody said, "Sir, would you jump out of that plane without a parachute or with a parachute that didn't work?" I mean, I'd ask a couple of questions. I'd be like, "Well, is it on the ground?
Yeah.
Is it over an ocean? How much money are you going
to I wore a parachute a lot when I was teaching aerobatics flying, but I never used one. There's no way I would jump out of a perfectly healthy airplane. I couldn't do that.
Oh, come on. That'd be awesome. It sounds like so much fun.
You first, and then I'll be right behind you.
Well, let's go skydiving, man. I think that sounds awesome. I'll absolutely go skydiving in a heartbeat. And I could do a podcast and I could talk philosophy. We could do a Zoom meeting. We could do a Zoom podcast. I'm falling out of the airplane. You're in the airplane and we're live streaming it. What do you say?
Oh, I'll watch it all day long, but
Bob. Ladies and gentlemen, drum roll, please. Well, Aage, this has been awesome, man. Much appreciated. We need to do this again sooner than later because I think it's been too long.
Oh, hey, I got a subject for you.
Okay.
Time travel.
Ooh, yes, absolutely.
In the back of this book, I talk about how to do it. Remember? It's I don't, not the last section, but it's right back there. And see, the thing is, on Broadcast Team Alpha, I think it's page 17, I got 2 pictures, evidence of time travel. And I had those pictures, I've been sitting on them for about, I don't know, 10 years. I didn't know really what to do with them. But a few years ago, 3 years ago, I put them up there. Didn't really talk about it much. But I just now have the pictures examined by a forensic expert. That was Jim Gelatoso in Phoenix. And he said he blew them up and blew them up and blew them up until he saw the pixel. And he said, there is no alterations in the pixel. These pictures are real. They were not manipulated. And of course, I told him that. So these pictures is my evidence of time travel. And this will be a whole show, actually, because it is so far out there. Right now, I'm so controversial anyway, I don't really care. But most people will not believe anything like that, even though science says time travel is possible.
You said it was on page 3?
No. Broadcast Team Alpha, go on the picture gallery.
Yeah.
And then you go to, I think it is page 17. I think so.
Okay.
And then I can see it here. It's about 5 or 7 rows down, 2 pictures in the middle, kind of greenish in color.
I'm getting there. You've got 200 pages on your website.
Yeah, there's 5,000 unbelievable pictures that should not exist, but they do.
Oh man, here we go. Look at this. Okay, so here I'm just
Nori and I are pretty proud of that website.
Yeah. So okay, so this is page 17.
Is that it? No, doggone it, and I got the wrong page. I think try 15.
Okay.
Yep, there you go. 2 in the middle. No, it's the one 3 down on the right and 4 down on the left. Those are if you pick if you click on the one to the right,
This one.
oh, I guess we are backwards then. Yeah, click on one of them. And oh, the other picture. Okay. See what you see in one of them is that it's the dry picture. And in the middle, a little bit to the right, you can see there's a tree there down at the bottom.
Yeah.
Yep, right there. There's no leaves on it. And then you can see the road is dry. There's no rain on it. Those are the, just now click on the other one. Go back and then click on the other one.
This one. What? This one.
No, no, no. No, no. You may have to go back to the
This one.
picture gallery. No, I think this is the same one, isn't it?
No, this was, you showed me the one, this is the first one we were at.
Oh, okay. Now the second, yeah, go back then. There you go. Now you can see there's rain on the road,
Yes.
different color. And on the trees down at the bottom, there is leaves now.
Okay.
Look at the timestamp at the top between
Right.
the two pictures. These two pictures were taken 1 minute and 5 seconds apart. I did the mind experiment and I went back and I tried to get it at the same time, but I missed it with 1 minute and 5 seconds. So in 1 minute and 5 seconds, the trees lost all the leaves and the roads are wet from rain. That's just two of the differences. That's something we can talk about later, and there is no alterations around the date stamp on these. This was not manipulated.
And you had somebody look at that to verify it.
Yeah, John Delatroso did in Phoenix, and he is well known for forensic investigation of pictures.
And so you think that this is showing time travel based upon the rain and the leaves falling off the tree?
Okay, you didn't get to read the text with it, but the text explained that I did first. I went to the internet, and there were a town in Europe that had cameras all around town. And I was watching one of those cameras and did a screenshot. Quite a bit later, I sat down and I did this mind experiment where I went back and tried to take a picture at the same time as the first one. And I missed it with 1 minute and 5 seconds. But during those times, the timestamp at the top showed that it was taken 1 minute and 5 seconds apart and lost all the leaves, and now there is rain on the road, and there are big differences in those two pictures from 1 minute and 5 seconds apart.
Yeah, man, that's interesting. Well, dude, I can't wait to get into this deeper and talk about time travel with you. People in the chat are like, yeah, we definitely need to talk about that. So,
and in fact, in the back of the book, I talk about how to do it.
Sweet. Well, once again, I'm going to give another shout out: spiritual science, higher conscious thinking, and how to access the universal consciousness. Learn how to expand the power of the mind at every level of existence. That is not an easy title to say smoothly, man. I've messed that up every single time. I was like, but they're not going to forget it. They're not going to forget it. And it's worth it.
If you really want to develop the mind, then Nori and I have put together a mastermind group where we, on Sundays at 2 o'clock East Coast time, we get together and we mastermind what we want to see in our lives. And we are doing some incredible things with it. And first we do a meditation, which Nori guides us into. And then we do a little manifestation of what we'd like to see in our lives. And a lot of that stuff is happening.
Yeah, that sounds
So
cool.
I know you're a busy guy, but can I send you a link so you can come and join in and see what it looks like sometimes?
Please do. Absolutely. And please give me
Okay.
a link too, so I can share with other people, because I know they'd love to do it also.
Yeah.
And man, that sounds fantastic.
Yeah. So,
It's,
in order for people to participate in this, it's free. Come send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. themastermindconnection@gmail.com, and we'll send you some information on it. And also Saturday night I send out a link to everybody so that they can participate on Sunday.
okay. Right on.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Augie. This was awesome, man.